Hi everyone, Yapi here. I wanted to talk about a comment someone left here talking about Marilyn leaving Babylon, who made video on the land of Jesus between Russia and America. I've seen that idea, but the problem with that now is there are people who try to say that the camp of the saints is going to be in the same area this time around with this in this short season of deception. That's not the case, people. That's if we look at the Bible. The Bible tells us where these things are going to play out. We don't have to make stuff up. It's good and fine that I found that area or the land of Jesus, and I can understand why that area would have been the land of Jesus. I can show you today if you want to know why that is the case. And maybe I'll just look at that first before I show you where the short season of deception is going to play out. Where the battle of Gog of Magog is going to be, where the camp of the saints are going to be. So first, let's just look at this land of Jesus. Why is it where it says, or the old map shows it is? You see here is America, here is Russia, or Asia. What you see here is Arzareth. And it even mentions here in the text, I believe, 2 Esdras 13. Because 2 Esdras 13 talks about the 10.5 tribes of Israel moving to Arzareth after they were captives in Assyria. They moved away to a far land where there's no people, and it took them a year and a half to get there. It says so in 2 Esdras 13. Now the land is here, where I show you. Arzareth is on the east coast of Asia. Just across the sea here is America. That's where it is. If you look on these maps, it would have been around here, Arzareth. That gives you an idea why the land of Jesus was more or less in the same area. And the reason I say so is it's the 10.5 tribes, people. And these tribes, they came to the knowledge of Yahushua and they accepted the truth. The disciples and the believers went to these areas in Asia. They knew where they moved to. They knew they moved to Arzareth. So they went all through Asia, India, and so on, where the Israelites were. And they preached to them and they accepted the truth. They went to the UK and the islands and they preached there and they accepted the truth. So these became Christian countries, you could say. And the word Tartary, or Tatar, when I looked it up in the old books, it means remnant. So Tatar means remnant, and it refers to the Israel remnant that went to these areas and moved to these areas. Now again today there will be again another Israel remnant gathered with the second Exodus, but it's not this Israel remnant talked about in Tartaria. So if you wondered about Tartaria, I believe Tartaria is mainly the 10.5 tribes of Israel who stood together and they conquered Europe, Asia and Europe. Now of course parts of Israel were already in Europe anyways, but the 10.5 tribes moved through Asia mostly. And during the Millennial Kingdom, that huge area of Tartary, or Tartaria, I believe was mostly the Israelite tribes who ruled that area, especially during the Millennial Kingdom of Yahushua. And that is also why I believe the land of Jesus was here, close to Arzareth, where they moved to first. And what you also notice on this old map here, the wall of China there, Chinae, it says there. So that here where it says Tendak, that's basically where Arzareth used to be, close to where it says Tendak. And it is your Gog, and you have your Gog and Magog. It's in this area. It refers to Russia, where the main army will come from is Russia. He will conquer other nations, of course, but he will be the head, you could say, the head of the snake or the head of the beast or whatever. He will be the head of these nations, Gog and Magog, or Gog of Magog. And you see it's here's America, and there's the Aegean Straits. Why is there a wall between China and this area where Tartary, Israel's tribes used to be? One of the reasons, I believe, or the main reason probably, and nobody else mentioned this before, might not be the case, but I think it is probably the case. Israel, in the law, it says they're not allowed to mix with other races of people. They're not allowed to mongrelize. And I can see that as one of the reasons they would have built a wall between China and the Israel nations, yeah. We read that in the Bible, and they actually changed one of the 10 Commandments to you shall not commit adultery. I might make a video on that in English. I've done it in Afrikaans, showing that the 7th commandment actually says you shall not mongrelize. It didn't say you shall not commit adultery, because otherwise there's 2 commandments that says the same thing. The 7th and the 10th commandment says you shall not commit adultery. Why is that? It's because the 7th one said something else. And we see in the case with Ezra, when he saw the Israelites here, he says, a powerful expression of grief and shock upon discovering that Israelites had been intermarrying with people from surrounding lands, from other races. Ezra, the prophet, pulled out his hair and in grief when he saw this. And the people, they let these women go. They said they will let all the women of these other races go, and they will turn back to Yahweh's commands. The same thing with Nehemiah. When Nehemiah read the law to the people, what did they do? Go read about Nehemiah. You will see they let all their women go of the other nations, because what did the law say? The law said they're not allowed to marry other nations. Just as a fact for Israel, sadly, that's the case. Now, they muddied the water in the times we are living. The water is muddied. People don't know the truth. People don't know that Israel are not supposed to mix with other races. You can call me racist if you want. I don't care. That's what the Bible says. And that's what Yahweh wants Israel to do. And that's why I say this. And so that's why I think there was a wall between China and the lands of Israel, because East Asia became the lands of Israel back then, during the Millennial Kingdom and just before the Millennial Kingdom. And so that's that. Let's see here. There's another one here of Azareth there. A picture. There it says 4 Esdras 13. Now 4 Esdras is the same as 2 Esdras 13. And it is another proof that this is the place they moved to. One more thing I would want to show you here on this map is you have your Naphtali there. And just above Naphtali there, you see Dan. You see Dan and Naphtali, 2 of the tribes of Israel. In this area where they moved to, Ashereth, just a bit higher up. This area that shows Dan, Naphtali is now underwater today. So these are quite interesting things. And there is a connection between Israel and Tartaria people. Israel were Tartaria. They are the Tartarians. As I said, the word Tartarian means Tatar and it means remnant. So I believe mainly it refers to Israel remnant. And there are some of the old books that shows this. When you look at the old books, they show that Tartaria and Israel, the 10.5 tribes, was part of the Tartarians. Yes, this is the other thing I wanted to mention is you can watch this video of mine. Is Jerusalem lies destroyed? So the fact of the matter is, today Jerusalem lies destroyed. It will only be rebuilt after the second Exodus, which still must happen. So that place there in Asia, by Palestine, is fake, people. It's a fake Jerusalem. Jerusalem lies destroyed according to the Bible. So who are you going to believe? That fake city there of Jerusalem or the Bible? And then why Israel is important to Yahweh, the race of Israel, is because they're supposed to become priests for him to minister to the nations. You can go watch this video on the future purpose of Israel after the second Exodus. This video will tell you what Israel will do, the priests of Yahweh, the Israel remnant, what their purpose will be on the new heavens and earth. On the new heavens and earth. This is also mentioned in Enoch. Enoch also explains in a prophecy what Israel priests will do on the new heavens and earth. So if you wanted to know beyond this earth, what will happen, that's one of the things that will happen. So that's quite interesting. So yeah, they will be like missionaries, going to different countries. And what will they preach to the people? I believe mainly the commands of Yahuwah, because we read in Jeremiah 31, the new covenant that Yahweh will make with this Israel remnant after the second Exodus, after they gathered in South Africa. He will make a new covenant with them, and he will write his commands on their hearts, but he will also place it in their minds. They will automatically know all his commands off by heart. They will just know it. And nobody on earth has that ability today, or received that covenant today. That is a future covenant. If you read Jeremiah 31, you will see that it talks about a future event after the second Exodus. It shows there that it is after all the Israel tribes gathered together. Then they receive that covenant. So you can go watch these videos. So where will Israel gather? Let's have a look. I showed you, of course, on here. It's in Africa, here in the bottom part of Africa. The reason they gather here is this is where Yahweh is going to make a covenant, and then they can go into Canaan. Just like the first time, the first Exodus, before they could cross the river Jordan up here into Canaan, they had to get circumcised, and there were probably a few other things they had to do, and then they could move into Canaan. But the fact of the matter is, again, Yahweh will first make a covenant with this Israel remnant, and then they will be allowed to move back into Canaan. Now, Canaan is here on the equator. Original area of Canaan is the part here in blue, but they moved downwards and across. The Democratic Republic of Congo used to be a sea. This wasn't land, this was a huge sea here. There was a lot more water back in the day. And so this mainly was Judah's area right here where you see Zion, there's Mount Zion. But that's why also a prophet from South Africa in the 1920s to 1910s, he prophesied also that the future Israel who gathers in South Africa, they will take the land back up to the equator. So they will take the land up to the equator, which is here. Just going to show you, if you grid lines. So you can see exactly where the equator is. Up to here, a little bit higher than the equator, of course, up to the blue line. Numbers 34 tells you why this blue line here is here at the top. It is Mount Hor line. The northern border is Mount Hor, which is on this line. Now the bottom line, I'm not too sure where it was. And Canaan was up to this sea here, up to the river here that dried up, which was part of the Nile River. It came along here. You can't see it today. Today it's a bunch of lakes because Africa dried up. So up to this river was Canaan, and up to Mount Hor there, and downwards. So how far downwards, I'm not too sure. Probably not too far, but as I said, they moved further down. And I think they even ended up here in Tanzania, Zambia, these areas, Congo, Angola, top part of Angola. But this is what's going to happen in the future. These people are going to move up and take countries here up to the equator. And this is the area that Russia is going to surround with the other nations to attack them. And when he surrounds this area, this dragon here will lift up his head and incinerate them with fire. That's what's going to happen in the near future. Just want to take this grid line away. Then this dragon will lift his head and incinerate the people here. The verses that shows us they gather in South Africa is Ezekiel 38 verse 13, talking about the Gog of Magog war. You can see here the Gog and allies attack Israel, and it says here they will come to Shaba, Dedan, or Saba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. This is where they are going to attack. So where is this? I show you in my earliest videos where these places are. People, you need to go check those videos. Then you will know where the Israel remnant will gather. And to sum up for you, Tarshish is here. There is Tarshish. It's on Mozambique border. Now, Ophir and Saba, Queen Saba, lived in Ophir, and Ophir is in Zimbabwe. So it's Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and South Africa is Saba, Dedan, and Tarshish. Is these areas. So you still have today the Saba or Sabia River, or the Sabi River, and you have one, they say, in Zambia, but you also have one in South Africa, Sabia River, a Sabi River. Interesting, because this is the area where Queen Saba used to live. And that is the place where they are going to attack with this final battle of Gog of Magog. So this is very clear, people. It's going to be here in the bottom part of Africa. Another verse, of course, is Zephaniah 3 verse 10. From beyond the rivers of Cush or Ethiopia, my worshippers, the daughters of my dispersed ones, so it's talking about Israel remnant, shall bring my offering. So it says they will gather, the Israel remnant will gather beyond the rivers of Cush. The rivers of Cush is the Nile River, and the river of Cush ends here by the equator. So beyond it would be at the bottom part of Africa again. This is where they will gather in the future. So there you have it, people. It's clearly not the same place of the land of Jesus that they show you these days on the old maps of the millennial kingdom. The areas where Yahushua ruled from in the millennial kingdom is not going to be the same in this season we are living. In this short season of deception, Yahushua is going to come with his floating city here to South Africa to protect it with the Gog of Magog war. And I am of the belief that Yahuwah and Joshua will rule from Africa in the future, the whole of Africa. And the epicenter of his kingdom will be by the equator here, where the real Mount Zion is also located. And this is where he will rule from. I have other videos on this too, where everything began, everything is also ending. I've got a video on that that talks about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden, where Yahweh placed them, and how everything is going to culminate and coming to an end in the same location now. Now, the Garden of Eden, I found it, and it's here in South Africa. It used to be here. And this is also, interestingly, South Africa is the place where Yahweh is going to gather the remnants of Adam and Eve, the offspring of Adam and Eve. He's going to gather again with the second Exodus in the exact same location, people, in South Africa, where the Garden of Eden used to be. And how can I be certain this is the Garden of Eden? Well, if you go read, what's the book? Jubilees 8. It tells you that the Garden of Eden, Mount Sion, and Mount Sinai is in line with each other. One of them are on the equator. So when you draw a line, which is this red line, from the Garden of Eden through the equator here, which is by Mount Kenya, which is Mount Hermon, Mount Sion, up into Arabia, and you zoom in on this mountain there, that is Mount Sinai. There it is, see? I showed you in a previous video Mount Sinai with Yahweh's footprints on it and his handprint on it. And this is a proof that I have the correct location for the Garden of Eden. I have the correct location of Mount Sinai and the Garden of Eden, because they are in line with each other. Which is amazing, people. This is amazing proof. Now, of course, Africa looked different back then. I believe this part here looks like a horn. Used to be above the water. Remember that Cain fled to the land of Nod, which is, I believe, in this area here that's now underwater. Which was, the Bible says, on the east side of the garden. And yes, very interesting stuff, people. But if you know what the Bible says and the extra biblical books and you put it all together, then everything just makes perfect sense. And if everything just fits perfectly like a jigsaw puzzle. There you have it. And I think that's it, what I wanted to say on this matter. Oh yes, I have that video also of who is Israel, which race is Israel, if you want to go watch that. And I don't think the race of Israel, to Yahweh, they are special because he wants to have them as his priests. Why? So they can go minister to the other nations. So Yahweh doesn't hate the other nations. He loves all nations. But he has a special purpose for the race of Israel. And that's what it's about. So it's not about being racist or anything. It's about Israel needing to know who they are so that they can fulfill their purpose. That's what it's about. But anyways, that's it. All right, enjoy your day. Bye.